The Philadelphia Flyers, another new voice behind their bench, Rick Tocchet, taking over for Brad Shaw, who replaced John Tortorella. The club finished 6 games below 500 last season, missed the playoffs for the 5th consecutive year. The last time in there, in fact, was in the bubble in Toronto in 2020. Perhaps one of the most glaring statistical pieces about the Flyers is their power play, which managed to bounce up to 30th last year at 15%, but in the 3 prior years was last. And so this has to be a definite priority for Tocchet. And a player that they acquired during the offseason making headlines, Trevor Zegras, coming in a trade with Anaheim in exchange for Ryan Poehling and a pair of picks in 25 and 26. They also signed Christian Dvorak, left wing out of Montreal as a UFA, and also goaltender Dan Vladar from Calgary. So let's start with the ads, and let's talk the Zegras trade in particular, because I believe this was a player that after he came back from injury last season, had a little bit more sandpaper to his game, but I'd also said that I believed probably the best move for Zegras would be out of Anaheim, where the Michigan looked to be his trademark, and perhaps a fresh start in a new city with a new coach. See what happens.
No, you're absolutely right. And he's a Connecticut kid. So getting into Philly is a lot closer to Connecticut than Anaheim was. He made headlines when he did that Michigan move, and everybody thought about how skilled the kid is, and he is. There's no doubt about it. But they got to see what Rick Tocchet in Philadelphia can get out of him now. Will this be his time to turn his career around? Is he going to play with Dvorak? Is he going to play with Michkov? Who's he going to play with? And can he and Dvorak give Philadelphia 2 lines that can score? Because we know they've got one with Michkov and Couturier and Konechny, but they need that second line. They need that second line with Owen Tippett, and maybe Dvorak and Zegras can give them that.
This team has grown over the course of the last really 2, 3, maybe you can even stretch it to 4 years. A lot of these players have remained with the club. Tyson Foerster re-upped as an RFA, so did Noah Cates. And the big one for them, Cam York on defense, 5 years, 5.15 AAV. And as you mentioned, they have some pieces in place. Matvei Michkov was a Calder Trophy candidate for a good part of the season. Bobby Brink, Noah Cates, Jamie Drysdale, and Travis Sanheim. Quality players, young players, and I think a good group that Tocchet has to start to move forward with.
Tocchet has to get these guys to take the next step in their career and to improve. Again, have a better year this year than they had last year. Young players, if you can see them continue to have better and better seasons, then you're headed obviously in the right direction. And that's what Rick Tocchet and his group of coaches are going to have to do. Jamie Drysdale is a very talented young defenseman and great hands, able to do good things offensively. Let's see if he can make the next step. They've given York the big contract. Now York has to make the next step. And we've already mentioned up front with Zegras and Tippett. So if these guys can do this, Vic, maybe they've got a shot at being in the bubble, and by the bubble, a group of teams that are banging on the door of the wild card. Maybe they can bang on the door of the wild card if they can get these young guys to take the next step.
I'm going to be curious to see what happens with their power play now, because I don't believe that they still have a true quarterback on the power play. And you could look at Drysdale. You might look at Konechny as a guy that can start to set plays up from the outside. Owen Tippett has to have a better season than he had a year ago. And that's going to be a huge key for them, is if they can move up even 10 spots in the league on the power play, that's going to make a big difference. And that's probably what kept them out of the playoffs 2 seasons ago. when they just missed out on the last night of the season. The other thing to look at, the goaltending issue never seems to go away there. And of course, they thought that their goaltending issues were solved with Carter Hart, and we know how that all ended up. Sam Ersson, Ivan Fedotov, splitting the time last season. Dan Vladar has never been a number one goalie in the NHL, but does this create maybe the necessary competition to elevate everybody's game?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think it also is something that you're seeing around the league. Everybody seems to want to have three guys that can play in the NHL. There's goalie injuries now, I think, more than there's ever been. And Vladar gives them that NHL goaltender that's there. So if Fedotov can't do it or Sam Ersson can't do it, you've got Vladar. Now, none of them are really what you think of as a number one goalie. So there's got to be a development stage there for one of them to grab that.
But still, again, there's no number one goaltender there. And at least the opportunity presents itself. Maybe Ersson matures. Fedotov, we have seen some promise. So again, I think we're looking at potential for those two. And maybe the security blanket is Vladar in this entire scenario.
I would think that's what Danny Brière is trying to do here, and maybe do some competition for those guys, and particularly for Fedotov, who had missed a whole year of hockey while he did his military service in Russia. Maybe he's just going to let them fight it out to see who gets that spot with Rick Tocchet and his group.
Couple of prospects to potentially look out to crack the lineup this year. Oliver Bonk, right-handed defenseman, and Jett Luchanko, who had 56 points, 46 games for Guelph, the OHL last season. He started the year with the Flyers, has some good speed, but then they sent him back so they wouldn't burn a year of eligibility. I want to hit on the drops for 1 second here, because in addition to Poehling going to Anaheim in the Zegras deal, Jacob Pelletier was signed as a UFA by Tampa after not receiving a qualifying offer. And Pelletier was acquired on January 31st, along with Andrei Kuzmenko from the Flames. They also got 2025 and a 2028 draft pick in exchange for Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. But the net of this is when Kuzmenko was traded for 2 draft picks, the end result is they got 4 draft picks, and Frost and Farabee are going to probably be key components for the Calgary Flames this year.
And Kuzmenko got re-signed by Ken Holland and the LA King. And they're not high picks that Philadelphia got on those 4 picks.
Yeah.
So they're not guaranteed NHL players by any means. Yeah, kind of strange. A strange move in not qualifying Pelletier. So I just think that perhaps, I guess there was something they just didn't like about Jacob Pelletier, because they got him there. You would think that would make them look pretty bad by having nothing after trading away those Frost and Farabee. But I guess they didn't like him.
And didn't even qualify him.
That's right. If you don't qualify him, and you don't either say to the agent, we're not going to qualify him, but we're going to sign him. We want to sign him, but we're not going to qualify him because we don't think he's worth his qualifying offer. That's what a lot of teams do. They didn't even do that, it looks like.
Final note on the Flyers. Rick Tocchet started his career in Philadelphia, won Stanley Cup in Pittsburgh, replaces John Tortorella. Now, both gentlemen, former Adams Trophy winning coaches, both with a hard edge. What's the difference between Tocchet and Torts?
I think that Tortorella is a much more experienced, seasoned coach than Rick Tocchet. I think Rick Tocchet has done a lot of things in his career, but I don't think he's John Tortorella. Now, having said that, I'm not sure that Rick Tocchet has as quick an expiration date on his back as John Tortorella, because John is so hard and so tough on the players and particular types of players that he usually he moves from team to team because of that. We'll see what Tocchet can do with this group. undoubtedly had a great season with Vancouver, won the Jack Adams Award, but then things went south on him, and you can blame management, but I think we're going to find out if Rick is a good coach or not now that he's got a team that he has to get to overachieve and has to push them to get better and develop players, develop young guys, and push the older guys to, as I said, to overachieve so that they are banging on the door of the playoffs.
And some of these players should be coming more into their prime now, because when Torts took that club over a few years ago, Chuck Fletcher didn't leave the cupboard very full for him.
No, it was pretty bare, and it was rebuilding. I'll never forget it. I was stunned when he took the job because I don't see John as a coach that can rebuild teams, that like a Roger Nielsen type guy. I saw him more as a guy who gets an experienced, ready to go team and can push them over the finish line. But he did a heck of a job, I think. I know he got fired and so on, but everybody does. But I think he did a heck of a job, particularly that first year.
Anything else on the Flyers before we wrap?
No, I think I just wish my friend Keith Jones and my friend Danny Brière and my friend Rick Tocchet all the luck in the world. I think it's going to be tough, but they're not in a good division. So that's the good side. There's not a lot. There's no great teams. Carolina and New Jersey, as we've already spoken about, are probably the cream of the crop. After that, you could get in.
Let's not forget the Washington Capitals either. Number one in the East last year.
Yeah, no, let's not forget them. Okay. I'll give you those three.